You believe in Jesus?
Yeah.
You believe Jesus rose from the dead?
Yes.
Well, Jesus said, they approached Jesus and said, what must I do? How do I do the works of God? And Jesus said, this is the work of God, that you believe on me. That's all you got to do is believe on him. And when you believe on him and you put your faith and trust in him, he promises to come into your life and to change you from the inside out. A lot of reasons, I think it's the major reason why people reject Christ is because they think it's a list of do's and don'ts. It's an external ethical system. But Jesus never called us to a list of ethics. He called us to a personal spiritual relationship with God, where God changes our hearts from the inside out, and the ethics and the morality flow from an inner transformation that God does in our hearts. I wouldn't want to follow a religion that goes by a list of rules. That sounds terrible. But every other major world religion is a works-based salvation. Christianity is the only grace-based, where there's nothing we can do to earn it. It's solely because of God's love and grace and mercy for us that he sent Jesus to die on the cross to pay the penalty that you and I deserve, so that God's wrath has been taken out on Christ, and we don't have to. God doesn't want to punish us, so he punished his son in our place. And so I just grieve at people who reject Christ because they don't want to follow a moral, ethical system, when Christ never called us to an ethics class. He called us into relationship where he promises to transform us from the inside out. I'm glad that you made it through that season.
Yeah.
There are many, many followers of Christ when they're introduced to secular ideas and concepts, which you should never be intimidated by any of this. You should never be intimidated by scientific evidence. Because if God is true, and if Jesus really is God in human form, science will never contradict him. And we never have to back down from that, if it's really true. If it's not true, bring it on. People ask me, what would it take for you to not believe in Jesus? Show me that Jesus did not rise from the dead, and I won't believe in him. And Paul writes in the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 15, if Christ is not risen from the dead, we're fools for believing in him, and we're false prophets. He was so sure of the historical resurrection of Christ that he based our entire faith on that. And that's the message of the gospel. It's not just a believe because you want to believe, or believe because your parents believed. Believing something because your parents believe it is a horrible approach. Because what if your parents believe what's wrong? So you don't believe something because your parents believe it or your culture or society believes it. You look at the evidence and you ask yourself, what's most reasonable? What's most plausible based on the evidence? And when you study the teachings of Christ, I was telling the gentleman out here, even people who don't believe in Jesus base their lives on his teachings. Do unto others as you've had them to do unto you. The teachings of Jesus have the ring of truth. There's an authenticity, yet if he claimed to be God, he's a lunatic. He's a liar. But yet when you study his teachings, you find out he's really in touch with reality. And he attacked racism, he attacked sexism, he attacked prejudice. So when people who follow Christ are called to love even their enemies, there's no greater form of ethics or teaching than Jesus. When you study his lifestyle, the way he lived, study the way he treated women in one of the most sexist societies ever recorded. The way Jesus treated women, allowing the woman with the alabaster oil to anoint his feet, it was audacious for him to allow a woman to even touch him. And yet when the other people were looking around saying, if Jesus knew who this person was, he would not have any association with her. And Jesus turns to them and said, you know what? This woman and what she's doing will become world famous, because he knew it would be recorded in the Gospels. Jesus attacked prejudice, the parable of the Good Samaritan. When he said, hey, it was a Gentile, it was It wasn't a Jew that went and helped the Jew that was sick. It was a group of people there was terrible prejudice going on. And he attacked it. He said, go and do likewise. Be neighborly to even your enemies, even those who spitefully use you. When you study his teaching, when you study his lifestyle, the way he loved and forgave enemies as he's dying on a cross, practicing what he preached in his moment of crisis, saying, Father, forgive them for they know not what they do, it demands me to respect him highly. So just line up all the purveyors of God, Jesus, Muhammad, line them all up and compare their lives, compare their teachings, study them, and you'll find that Jesus rises to the top in a way that no other option does.